Hi everyone, I'm Keith Stone with the Center for Hellenic Studies, and we're here for another installment of Office Hours. We're discussing hours 18 and 19 from Greg's book, The Ancient Greek Hero in 24 Hours. I'm here with Greg himself, with Janet, with Hélène, and with Sarah, who will be silent today, having lost her voice, unfortunately. Let me just read the two questions that we have going here. First, how important is Oedipus in the grove where his corpse resides? I ask this, says Greg, in the light of what we know about all the other superhuman forces that reside inside the same grove. And could we understand the status of Oedipus as a cult hero if we had only the Oedipus Tyrannus and had lost forever the Oedipus at Colonus? So this is Oedipus week, obviously, Sophocles week.
Yes. If I could start with the first question, I tell you what I was thinking about. As you know, Keith, right now I'm very interested in rethinking my thoughts about Mozart's magic flute and the roles of the Queen of the Night and Zarastro, who a lot of people assume is the father of Pamina, but probably is not. He's a wannabe father. And when Zarastro, who is a stand-in for Zoroaster, sings to Pamina about these sacred halls as a refuge for the fugitive young woman, in these holy halls, there is no vengeance, and so on, and so on, so on. The venue, these sacred halls, seems to be populated by very few superhuman forces. It's very concentrated, whereas the venue of Colonus, this place where Oedipus, a refugee from Thebes, finds refuge in this sacred space of Colonus. You have such a dense population of superhuman forces. Almost, may I joke, everybody who is anybody in the superhuman world of this place is present. And when it's described so lovingly in that beautiful choral passage, it's hard to think who isn't there in the sacred space. And it's almost as if Oedipus as the cult hero of Colonus were an afterthought, because everybody else is there already, including a prototypical hero called Colonus, who is the kind of visual embodiment of what the place looks like. It's a hero who is visualized as the place, just as the place is visualized as the hero. So I'm just asking in a kind of fanciful way, don't these superhuman forces get in each other's ways? But I think that's the beauty of what German experts in Greek religion call henotheism. It's not really a Greek word. It's just inspired by the Greek word heis, henos, meaning one, and of course theos, meaning God. And unlike monotheism, henotheism is not that you have any kind of belief system where there's only one divinity, but it's where you have to concentrate on one divinity, or let's make it more general, one superhuman force at a time. So one God at a time. I used to joke, I think we talked about this before, that henotheism is serial monotheism. And as long as Oedipus is the focus of who is the daimon, who is the superhuman force that is residing in Colonus, as long as he's the focus, the other superhuman entities can take a kind of secondary role for the moment. I don't know if that's helpful, but, and I could make it much more banal by talking about, I don't know, Disney World and Disneyland. When you go to one of these specialized places like the haunted house, there's such a plethora of different ways of imagining spirits of the dead, hundreds of different ways. So I don't want to say that Colonus is like the Disney World of ancient Greek hero cult, but I guess I just said it, didn't I? Yeah. Terrible, terrible, terrible.
And Greg, if I may, what about the connection with Sophocles, who was from Colonus?
Yes. I think Hélène hit the nail on the head, that it's the special ties, mental, moral, emotional, that Sophocles himself has with this place. This place, Colonus, is not just a sacred space, it's also a deme, D-E-M-E, which is an English-speaking classicist way of referring to a local district. Demos, D-E-M-O-S, with a long mark over the E, where the demos is an ancestral subdivision of territory that has its own customary laws, which means it has its own calendar, its own myths and rituals. And that's what Colonus is for Sophocles. It is his deme. It's his... All right, I'll get popular again. It's his hometown.
I went to Colonus last time I was in Athens, and Sophocles is the only personage memorialized there that I saw. There was a little bust of Sophocles, but nothing about Colonus or Demeter or, you know.
Or even Oedipus. Christian Greeks don't really relate very well to Oedipus. And you can understand. I don't quarrel with them. But they certainly relate to Sophocles. And isn't it interesting, my friends, that we do have anecdotal testimony that Sophocles himself, after he died in his 90s, he lived to such a ripe old age. After he died in his 90s, he was actually venerated as a cult hero in his own right. So I think the Greeks of today are very wise in focusing on Sophocles rather than Oedipus, or, as you say, dear Keith, Demeter or Poseidon, or the Furies, the Erinures, we should say, and we can add so many other super human entities that are finding it okay to have a condominium. I'm using that term again, condominium in Colonus.
I see a question here from Sarah in the chat bar. Was it common for there to be shared spaces for cult heroes or cult heroes and gods?
Yes.
Thinking about the shared space for the Eumenides.
Yes.
Either here, I suppose, or under the Acropolis.
The best example, thank you, dear Sarah, that is such an important detail, which is actually a generality as well as a detail. If you want to give a streamlined vision for people about how different superhuman forces can share a space, there's nothing better than looking for myths that have to do with an antagonism between a hero. I'm talking about a hero in the hero's life, between a hero and a god. And Exhibit A, at least when I was working on my 1979 book, Best of the Achaeans, Exhibit A is Neoptolemus, aka Pyrrhos, Pyrrhos, the son of Achilles, that's the hero, and Apollo, who is Pyrrhos' divine antagonist. In the myth, Apollo is the direct cause of the death of the son of Achilles. Now that's antagonism for you. At the same time, and we see this very clearly in Pindar's songmaking, the body of the son of Achilles resides inside the sacred space of Apollo. And that is made 100% clear in the evidence of Greek poetry, in Greek mythology in general, even by Pausanias, our wonderful traveler who visited Delphi in the 2nd century CE, and who actually saw the symbiosis, as I like to call it, that would be my metaphor, the symbiosis of the corpse of the hero, in this case, the son of Achilles, and the general precinct, the sacred space of the god with whom in life he was primarily antagonistic, and that's Apollo. So what a lovely question. What a lovely question from our mute participant.
What about heroes? So that's the model of a hero and a god resolving their conflict and having the same sacred space. What about two heroes in the same sacred space? Does that happen? How does that happen? I mean, we have it here in Oedipus at Colonus, but
yes,
it might be a unique example.
I've learned never to say unique about about anything that has to do with Greek myths and rituals, because, as I like to joke, every valley has its own variation on a theme. It's just like, if I can single out our French colleague, French-speaking colleague, Hélène, every French valley has its own cheese and wine. Which means every valley has its own bacteria. I like bacteria because it makes me think of the pollution that the hero experiences. So I wouldn't dare say that this is unique. I'm sure that if we dig, oops, wrong image. I'm really thinking of Halloween. If we dig down deep enough, I'd say most local heroes have earlier variations of themselves, even if the myth says there's only one. I could tell you something that is more easy to think with, which is how different communities share one hero by saying, well, we have the head of Orpheus, but community Y has the body of the rest of the body of Orpheus, and various other ways of partitioning. And when you think of Christian practices of venerating relics in both the Christian East and the Christian West, well, then we're talking about the relics of saints, and we can all think of situations where one community has one part of the body and another community has another part. And sometimes both, there may be two communities, 3, 4, who even claim the same body, or at least the same body part. But back to my question, I guess what I'm saying is I just can't get over how many superhuman entities are populating Colonus when you scratch the surface.
It's like the first apartment building of Athens with every divine person living in it.
Yes, yes, yes. Well, what about that second question, which was also, I think, very hard, and it has to do with my own struggles in coming to terms with these fascinating heroes. I don't know. And Keith knows this best, is that in some years, I would assign to participants for their first impression of Oedipus, not the Oedipus at Colonus, which was, after all, composed toward the end of Sophocles' life, but rather the Oedipus Tyrannus, which was composed decades earlier. And I found that worked less well. And so even though we're out of sequence both in terms of the logic of the myth, because here I'm getting people to read something that focuses on the end of Oedipus's life, and I start with that. But even in terms of the oeuvre of Sophocles, that he was thinking about Oedipus for decades before he ever composed the Oedipus at Colonus. And yet here I am assigning, so to speak, or suggesting that people read the OC first and the OT second. And my rationale is very simplistic, and it's something that's maybe so simple that once our participants understand that that's what was driving my question, they'll say, well, it's a cheap shot to start with what I said and not spelling out what my motive is. My motive is that the OC, the Oedipus at Colonus, is explicit about hero cult, whereas the OT, the Oedipus Tyrannus, is implicit. And I find, especially at the beginning of Oedipus Tyrannus, a real disconnect in the way the community of Thebes, which is his former home, how they talk to him as if he were a cult hero already, but clearly he's not. He is still very much in the prime of his life, and he is experiencing his first political failure, because here he is the king, and the king is the embodiment of society and the nature that envelops society, and suddenly nature has gone bad and society has gone bad. Everything has turned sterile. His first failure, and he's panicking. He doesn't know what's going on, but he's such an intellectual, he wants to get to the bottom of things. And here are all these signals coming at him. You're our hero. And I mean, you're our hero in the sense of you're our cult hero. And it doesn't work. And then to make things worse, he speaks as if he were the god Apollo. And Hélène, you'll like this, because it has to do with the way French pronounce all words on the last syllable, with stress on the last syllable. I remember the very first time I met Jean-Pierre Vernant. He was visiting Harvard because the invited speaker, the originally invited speaker, who was Émile Benveniste, had already become ill, and that's a tragedy I don't want to get into. And so the second choice invitee by Harvard's classics department at the time was Jean-Pierre Vernant, and he did his wonderful routine about Oedipus Tyrannus and how important it is to see him as a Tyrannus. And he was fascinated with the line, I'll say it in Greek, where Oedipus says, ego phano, I will cast a light on this. Well, that's what a detective would say, for heaven's sake. You know, I'm going to shed some light on this by way of my intellect. Sherlock Holmes could say it. But in this case, it's Oedipus who's saying, and if he says ego phano, everybody's worshiping him as a savior, as if he were Apollo, then you think, well, he's speaking the syntax of the sun. I will shed light on what's the cause of this pollution. Wow, you're not supposed to be saying that, Oedipus. That's only something that Apollo can say. But going back to Vernon, because of the way the French pronounce Greek, in this case it works, because even in the original Greek, the intonation is on the second syllable of both these two-syllable words. But can I just imitate the way Vernon said it in his lecture? Ego phano.
Yes, that's exactly ego phano. I think you also talk about another thing that Jean-Pierre Vernon did was walking the Roublé.
Oh my God! Yeah. Oh yes, and you see, you know, here we are intellectualizing the metaphor of decay, justice, absolute justice, as a straight line. And then hubris, the opposite, let's call it outrage against the cosmos, as a crooked line. Well, a crooked line is something that is 360 degrees potential. It can go in any direction. So what Vernon was saying is that the tyrannos can't walk straight. And of course, for poor Oedipus, because his mother had pierced his foot with the brooch from her beautiful hair, he grew up as somebody who hobbles, and so when he walks like this, and you can just see Vernon pacing the lecture floor and walking like Oedipus with his club foot. And therefore not being able to walk a straight line, violating the metaphor of decay, which is what a king should have, which is walking and talking a straight line, and being, not the way Trump would say it about his political opponent, but he's a crooked king.
And doesn't Oedipus's name mean clubfoot?
Yeah.
Is that right?
It's morphologically transparent. And if you ask an Indo-European linguistics person, they'll say, oh, yeah, that's a caland, C-A-L-A-N-D. They name it after the linguist who described this morphological category. It's a caland formation, and it means he whose foot is swollen. But of course, there are also the folk etymologies, and folk etymologies are not punning because they're not necessarily playful. They can be dead serious, but it can easily convey the word association, the idea of he who knows the number of feet, which goes back to the riddle of the Sphinx, which of course Oedipus solved. The riddle of the Sphinx is what animal walks on 4 feet in its infancy, 2 feet in its mature state, and on 3 feet as in its senescent, in its growing old phase. And of course, the answer is anthropos, a human, because the human crawls around on all fours as a baby. Then you have the adult walking on 2 feet, and then the broken down old man who's hobbling around with a stick. Because, by the way, an old man can't walk straight either. I know that from my own experience.
I love that etymology, that folk
Oh,
etymology.
it's amazing. It's just amazing. Hélène, did you ever see that beautiful film about the daughter of Victor Hugo called Adèle H? Adèle H.
Yes, I did.
And the H is, of course, for H, as in Hugo. But in the film and in the writings that precede it, it has to do with the breathing that is choked off. And Adèle H is obsessed with the death of her sister by drowning. And so the entire theme of Adèle H is waking up because you suddenly can't breathe because you're thinking of your drowned sister. And Victor Hugo has those wonderful testimonies to the daughter. There's one poem called Elle avait pris ce pli. She had a certain way about her. And anyway, the father couldn't get over the death of this daughter. The sister couldn't get over the death of the sister. And what I'm emphasizing is that in the film, I still remember the actress. It's Isabelle Adjani. And you would see Isabelle, she's such a good actress. She'd be sleeping, and then suddenly she can't breathe, and she wakes up. And why am I saying this? Because the noun sphinx, as in riddle of the sphinx, is a choking sensation where you wake up in the middle of the night and you're feeling, I can't breathe. So it's that nightmarish, otherworldly, superhuman being that is defeated by Oedipus. Oedipus defeats nightmares by solving riddles, and then he can't solve his own riddle in the end. So it is so tragic, and it's somebody like Sophocles who sees it so well. He underplays the actual words of the riddle of the Sphinx. Everybody knows it when this drama is presented, and there's no direct quotation of it in Sophocles, but everybody knew it. And so it's like Oedipus himself is the living riddle, is the living enigma, ainos, if I can give it the more simple form of the word.
Mm-hmm. How about the people of Thebes? They are in the background, and they are part of the hubris.
Yes.
And
Yes.
Oedipus is shouldering all the hubris in a way.
Everything, and there's that beautiful moment where he says, you're all suffering, you all have individual pains in the community, but all your pains come together as one in me. And of course, this is Anthropology 101, because the king, an anthropologist can tell us, is the embodiment of society. So it's everything coming together. But that means if the society is sick, then the king is really sick.
And society's sickness, they treated him as a savior, which is a hubris.
Which is a hubris. It would be okay after death. You could say that to Oedipus after he dies, but sorry, Thebans, Oedipus has moved from Thebes to Athens. Too bad.
I just want to point out that one of our participants has taken that line of reasoning that because Oedipus isn't dead in the Oedipus Tyrannus, we can't really know about his worship as a hero.
Bravo. That's exactly it.
You mentioned Apollo and Oedipus's competition with Apollo, or you might say antagonism. So one divinity that I don't think is in Colonus
Yes.
is Apollo, right? I don't think he's mentioned. Is that
I'm
right?
panicking. I don't think so.
I mean, there's such a long list.
It's practically everybody else, but I guess you're right. He's not.
So that makes me think that Oedipus Tyrannus was part of a different trilogy of tragedies.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh
Maybe
yeah.
there was a different cycle where Oedipus ended up being worshipped, in a sacred precinct with Apollo somewhere.
And I have such trouble with trilogies, even that concept. We're just very lucky that Aeschylus does 3 tragedies in a row that have a sequence, because certainly later tragedians didn't really do that. And that's just something that torments me. I don't have a good explanation about what it was like to have 3 tragedies of Sophocles coming at you where they're not necessarily connected with each other. It's just scary. I find any one tragedy of Sophocles so explosive with things crammed into it that how can I imagine sitting through 3 of them plus a satyr drama after that? Oh my God!
How often is this festival? Every couple of years.
Oh no, it's better every year.
Every single year.
And it's not enough to have City Dionysia. They have to have a second best festival because tragedy is so all-consuming. And then you have local theaters that do local versions. So it's Athens is, as Plato would have said in a different context. Are you ready? This is in the laws. Theatrocratia, a theatrocracy.
Wow.
And of course, that's a very snobby way. This is such a popular medium. It's like democratia, democracy.
Oh, it's an insult for him.
Oh yeah. Oh, of course, totally. Because it's a medium that mixes up the genres. You don't have the pure undiluted form of I don't know, Thranos or what's another good one, Payan. They're all thrown together into a melting pot of genre.
Yeah, Plato doesn't like epic either, which
well,
brings them all together.
He doesn't like poetry because poetry is a rival of philosophy. But he's tricky. He really likes it. It's just that he likes philosophy more. Well, my dears, I actually have to go somewhere else in my neighborhood in something like 10 minutes. So I think I have to disappear in a puff of smoke very soon. I can't help speaking in Halloween terms.
Just for posterity's sake, we should note that we're filming this on Halloween.
Yes.
The day of Halloween. So.
Yes. It's only fair to tell our participants.
And Oedipus, he kind of disappears in a puff of smoke.
Well, that's what I was thinking. Okay. Not that I'm relating to him. No.
Hopefully not. Okay. Great talking to you all again.
Thank you so much, all 4 of you, and thanks especially to Sarah for transmitting mute questions. That was very effective.
The paradox.
A paradox.
All right. Bye for now.
Bye, everyone.